All right, I'm going to record and let's let everybody in. We've got about 16 people, so here we go. Hi, everyone. Hey, Anita. Hey, Matt. Diana. Welcome, everyone. Thanks. We're all just kind of settling and arriving. If you wanted to either unmute yourself and share your name and where you're calling from, or either way, you could type it into the chat. We'll just kind of say hello. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Phila, who is not on the screen right now, but it's her birthday today. Thank you.
Number 60.
Yeah.
She's a mere babe.
Thank you. Love it.
So I'm Anita Manuel. And I'm in Abingdon, Virginia, in Southwest Virginia. They had a lovely, lovely display of orange and yellow and everything, really bright with the sun going down today.
Oh, spectacular. Thank you. And I'll read. We've got a couple of people typing into the chat. We've got Matt joining us again. Hi, Matt. He's joining from North Carolina. And glad to be here. We're glad you're with us. And I like is that a Doctor Who shirt you're wearing? That's a great choice. We've got Cheyenne and Richard from Kentucky. Is this your first time? Have you joined us before?
No, this is our first time.
Oh, wonderful. Welcome. Give us great. And we've got Deb, and she's coming from Michigan, and Jesse from California. Hello, welcome everyone. Great. Yeah. And for those who don't know, I'm Mariko. I'm helping out with Order of the Sacred Earth alongside Skylar Wilson, who is unfortunately not here today, and Matthew Fox, who is joining us today, but does have to leave at 6:30 or in half an hour or so to run off to another class, but he will be with us until then. So great. Thank you. Oh, and Phila, whose birthday it is. Happy birthday again from Baltimore. And I guess the leaves are just starting to turn there.
Yes.
Beautiful. Great. Well, without any further ado, I will go ahead and hand it off to Phila, who will open us up with a prayer. And then we'll get the meeting started a little bit after that. So go ahead, Phila. Please lead us into our council.
Thank you. Thank you. This is the invocation of the Black Madonna of the Four Quarters from the Order of the Black Madonna, starting at the east. Ave Hodajetria, she who shows the way. Dark Mother, we call to you, Black Madonna of Czechostowa. Shine your guiding light and be with us. Ave. Rosa Mystica, Dark Mother, we call to you, Virgin Santissima de Guadalupe. Glow your radiant light and be with us. Ave. Stella Maris, Star of the Sea, Dark Mother, we call to you, Sainte Marie de la Mer, pour out your mercy and be with us. Ave. Sede Sapiencia, O Throne of Wisdom, Dark Mother, we call to you, Black Madonna of Montserrat, stand as our mountain sanctuary against the storms of a troubled world. Ave. Ancestors, beloved dead, mighty beings of love and light who carry the gifts and teachings of all our lineages, we bless and honor you. Be welcome here, guard our proceedings, and whisper your wisdom to us as we honor the great Mother and Father of all. Hail and welcome. May there be peace in the north. May there be peace in the south. May there be peace in the east. May there be peace in the west. May there be peace above and peace below. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings and in the heart of the earth. So may it be.
So may it be. Thank you, Phila, for that wonderful invocation. Really grateful for that opening of space and light. And hopefully we will all open our hearts together today to hear from each other and to learn. We have but a short hour together, so we'll go ahead and get started. I just want to give a really warm welcome to those who are joining us for the first time, and a warm welcome to faces that we've seen before. Thank you for coming back month after month. Your energy keeps this group going and evolving. So thank you. Thank you. And so typically what these meetings are, we come together and we give a council update. We hear usually from Matthew and Skylar and just a general update about what is new with the order. And then we have a guest speaker, Kristal, who will be sharing with us, Kristal Parks, who has also written in the Order of the Sacred Birth, that too, birthing something new. And then we open it up to the rest of the council, where it's sort of a free form check-in, where you're able to share from the heart authentically what is alive for you in terms of earth activism, or ways you're supporting the earth, or if you have questions. And then today we'll also be hearing an update from our working group. If you've been part of our calls in the past, we have a recently formed group that has been meeting off of these monthly meetings, but coming together in a more frequent way to keep the connection alive. And I'll let them speak to that. So that's typically what we cover in an hour. It's a lot. And feel free to utilize the chat as well. If you have questions, comments, things that you want to connect with, please type those into the chat. Great. And so without any further ado, just a big welcome, and I'll turn it over to Matthew if you have any updates that you'd like to share with us. We had a pretty big month with Parliament, and I'm sure there's a lot that's alive. And I also think you might be muted.
Well, thank you, Mariko. I thought you would like to relay what we did at the Parliament with the well, the Mass on our Sacred Earth, but of course the Order of the Sacred Earth. So I leave that to you. I'll just say a couple of words about where I'm at, here in the Bay Area in Vallejo, California. And the big word this week is rain. We hadn't had rain in so long, I couldn't remember. It was so many months ago. And to be honest, I'd forgotten the sound of rain, saying nothing of the presence of rain. And my backyard that was all dirt for many, many months has turned green overnight because of the rain. And of course, you probably know, we didn't just have rain, we had a river of rain. And they say this too is part of climate change, that we're gonna lurch from drought to floods. And but just my point is that surely we need to let go of forgetting and taking for granted the blessing that rain is, or the blessing that sunshine can be wherever you're living. That the weather is obviously so, and the climate is so primal to our species and every other species. So again, it's the big things we easily can forget in our daily busyness, and in a perverted economic and political system where the corporations are telling us what to think about and what to call it, and we're not really tapping into the spiritual dimension of the blessings that come daily, whether it's rain or sunshine or healthy soil or snow and fun that raises in children and the rest of us. So that's just my message today is RAIN. Let's not take it for granted. Hallelujah. We have something to celebrate this week.
Thank you, Matthew. That's wonderful. Yeah, powerful stuff. Yeah, and I would be happy to give an update. And anybody that was there, I think there are people on the call tonight that were actually attending the panels that we had at the Parliament. But I'll just give a quick overview. So Order of the Sacred Earth, and then also Matthew Fox, we presented in 2 panels at the Parliament of World Religions. The Parliament takes place every 3 years at a different place in the globe. And this year was the first year that they went all virtual, which posed a lot of questions about technical, how are we going to be doing these things, but also opened up for a lot of people to attend that might not have been able to attend in the past. So it was much more accessible. And so the 2 panels that we presented as part of, the first one was the Cosmic Mass. I'm curious, how many people on the call, if you want to raise your hand, have been to a Cosmic Mass? All right. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So it was a very different experience doing it online. But I think we had about 160 people. I think that was the number that I saw online. Dennis, does that track with what you saw on your end? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, 160 people from all over attending. And so that was about a 2-hour long. We had a DJ that joined us, incredible. He played at the end. We had beautiful musical invocations by our dear Michelle. And so it was just really wonderful, and prayers offered by Matthew, Skylar, myself. And so it was just a beautiful weaving. And I do believe there's a recording that will be coming out so that you can tune into that if you weren't able to be there live. And then the following day, we had an Order of the Sacred Earth panel, and that one was a little bit smaller. It was about 45 minutes, so it's shorter than our council calls to explain what Order of the Sacred Earth is, and then speak about the intergenerational vision of love and action for the earth, and try distilling all of that into 45 minutes with 3 different panelists. Yeah, I think we did a good job though. And I'm not sure how many people we had on that call. I didn't see the numbers on that, but again, that was also recorded and will be available for viewing. I'm sure we'll pop it onto YouTube or something like that. But overall, really successful, and feeling really inspired by all of the great conversations that were happening throughout that weekend, not just with Order of the Sacred Earth, but across spirituality, religion, and different groups of people coming together to celebrate and learn from each other. So that was my big takeaway from the weekend, feeling really proud. I slept really great that night. I was exhausted. But yeah, so that was a little bit of an update. If anybody that is on the call currently that attended, I think there are a few of you, if you wanted to share a few words about your experience, that would be great. Not to put anybody on the spot. And if there are no reactions, that's totally great too. But thank you for those who did attend. That means a lot to us to have incredibly supportive community members that were.
I got one comment from Donna Zurwest, who is a Catholic deacon, and she said, "Would not have missed it for the world. You made this mystic's heart sing." So that sums it up for some people.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Donna. Amazing. Great. So at this point, I'll turn it over to our working group. So that is Jesse and Anita. And so feel free to take the next 5 to 10 minutes to share a little bit about an update about your working group, and then maybe for the new folks, maybe just describe what the working group is and what direction you're headed in.
Okay, I think today I'm leading the conversation here and sharing out to the work from the working group. Before I start, I just want to thank Anita and Seth and Diana and Matt Maz for showing up. And because we met over the course of, I think, 4 Sunday mornings, So I really appreciate everybody showing up and sharing their expertise and their enthusiasm. And I was really personally just touched by the amazing people that I have an opportunity to interact with and to work with across this great distance. So what I'm going to share now is input from the whole group here. So our working group came together. The purpose of the working group was to make recommendations for creating online opportunities for deeper conversations. And we were really just intended to be a short-term group. Through our conversations, we determined there's a need for an online platform that provides opportunities for people to find and connect with one another for deeper conversations. So people coming together may take various forms, including one-on-one conversations, as groups, discussions on specific topics, a place for pods to share, online pods, and regular facilitated gatherings outside of council meetings. And I also want to say there was a desire for both online interactions as well as face-to-face personal interactions. Matt Maz has been in conversation with Skylar and Matthew regarding the current what current technologies we have available and the resources. And my understanding is Matt has secured Skylar and Matthew's go ahead to begin the design and development of an online discussion platform. So one of the next steps in this process is to determine the application selection criteria. Additionally, the working group recognizes that deploying the technology of an online discussion platform is only one aspect of building community. We further recommend a group discuss in parallel with the platform development how we can come together effectively. And recommendations for further conversations include to develop a framework for how we can meet in community to ensure all viewpoints are heard and supported, create a diverse and inclusive community, explore community governance. How can people come together equitably, allow unconscious norms to surface, and deal with conflict to develop healthy relationships with self, others, and our earth. This includes how the online platform will be administered and facilitated. Additionally, the group coming together to explore the economics of supporting community. How do we support an ongoing community? What are the different value economies beyond volunteering? For example, gift economy. And really to move beyond words to meaningful action. The recommendations for our next actions, just to note that the primary function of this working group has been completed. Our recommendation is that we come together, our working group, Anita, Diana, Matt, Seth, I think myself, come together with Skylar and or Matt to discuss how we transition to the next stage of the online platform development. So with that, in case I missed anything, anyone from the working group want to chime in, please do. And if there's any questions, I know that's a lot, but feel free to ask.
So just a little chime, like I'm ringing the bell, right? Saying, yes, thank you so much, Jesse, for that. And everybody did contribute, but Jesse has been a fantastic note taker and helping put it all together. So, and I want to encourage, that thinking about as the form changes, as it comes into being, then, for people to be really praying about, considering what part they might play, for being able to carry this on over time and develop it in a healthy kind of way here as well.
Thank you, Anita and Jess. I just want to ring that bell and say absolutely ditto. And I think that one of the overall environments or contexts that this working group was in was, and Jess mentioned it, about the diversity and yearning for that. And that even went into, some of us live in urban areas, and we have options for building community with people who live less than a mile away, and others do not. and live in rural areas where online is maybe their only connection on a regular basis. And so the relationships are wonderful, and we each know that, and we each have that flexibility and grace and strength to develop those relationships in person and online. So thank you. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Anita.
I just want to say thank you to you all for accomplishing what you did and for meeting every Sunday morning for 4 weeks. That's proof in itself that you both generous and committed. So I just want to thank you for that. And as you say, we'll see how all this unfolds along the way. But I think you're off to a great start. So thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just gonna echo everybody else and just deep gratitude for following that thread. And as you all know, Order of the Sacred Earth is about building community. And I think we've moved past sort of the, like, as Diana was saying, just like kind of like the nuclear or immediate into the broader. And I'm just so grateful that this has come out of our council calls, like, the desire to connect on a more frequent basis, to keep that momentum and that energy going. Because again, once a month is really it's just a touch point. And then you're really building the foundation underneath, and living the pod experience, but in a digital way, which I think is really fabulous. So much gratitude to you all. And I definitely invite the conversation to continue. And Anita, I think I saw your hand. Go ahead.
I do. Two things. One is, Mariko, where's the best touch point for someone to be able to get in touch with this process?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily, to keep us in place, but, it might be through you, for instance.
Sure.
So that I wanted to suggest that. And the other is, I think it's really important. I think a lot of what's going on here, because it's going on in the bigger culture, is based on an older model of volunteerism, where you kind of assume that everybody has the resources to take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we get into more difficult situations, whether it's cyclone bombs or whatever, or fires or whatever it is, then we really, really need to be much more aware of gift economy and having a full circle of support for people. So I just want to re-emphasize that's needed in this case.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. And I'm open. I think we'll probably have a continued dialogue around what the best way to relay that information is. And I think I'm just going to recognize the evolving process that we're in right now. And also that I forget what it's like. There's like the stages of like storming, forming, norming, and just to acknowledge that any community coming together, there will be tension points and ways that we're going to realize, whoa, that wasn't the best way to do it, and we'll pivot. But just giving us space to make those mistakes, but to come together again in a loving way and be like, wow, we're really doing this for the earth, for each other, to make sure that we can support each other moving forward. So I love it. And yes, I love all of it. Great. And I also appreciate what you were saying around the different ways people want to step in or need to voice themselves and be heard, knowing that digital is just one of them. And I know Matt is on the call, and I think it might be wonderful to have like a quick update just to hear from you as you sort of proposed an online platform, what that looks like at this point. And then again, not that anything is set in stone at this point, but this is just one avenue that we're considering before moving forward. And I think that's important to speak out into the council space. So Matt, if you'd like to give us a quick update about where you're at with that. And also thank you so much again for all of your time. Really grateful.
Sure. And thanks to everybody as well. It's honestly been truly wonderful to be a part of this group and see people that are so focused, not just on the ideas, but in making sure that translates into meaningful action as we move forward. One reason that I think the web forum piece is so valuable is not just for all the reasons we've mentioned so far about communication, but it's also going to serve as an archive. So as new people show up with questions, we're going to have this beautiful archive of discussions that we've already had that new members can look back to, or that we can look back to for our own purposes. You know, for some of the more commonly discussed things, we can highlight certain threads or discussions within the forum so that, again, new people immediately can see sort of the structure of the discussions, and we can maybe even have a, you know, an FAQ based on the most common topics that come up. So that's ultimately what I would love to see. What I started working with the working group, I think I started during the second week of meetings, not so much the first week, but we discussed, you know, the need for communication. This was an idea that I came up with just based on my background working in IT and administering various web services, having used web forms in other communities to help build that community and to sort of archive the communication and, to an extent, the history of the group. And I know that it was within my skill set to add this, so I figured I would propose it. As Jesse mentioned, we discussed within the working group extensively. We also had discussions that involved, I think, yourself, Mariko, and of course, Matthew Fox and Skylar. And there seemed to be a general agreement that we could add a forum piece to the existing website without too much disruption to anything, and that it would ultimately benefit this community a lot. So where we're at right now is we need to select essentially which piece of software we want to use. And the way that I'm proposing we do that is to ask this group, all the members of this group, for your requirements. And these don't need to be technical requirements that require any knowledge of the software or the application. It's more about, what do you want to see in this application? What is important to you that this application do? And it can be anything from usability to content structure to ability to customize the interface. I mean, just whatever is jumping out. And what I would encourage people to do is to try to differentiate between what we absolutely have to have versus what would just be nice to have. Because obviously some things are going to be more important than others. And ultimately what we'll do is we'll come up with a list of potential applications, and we'll start comparing them against our requirements, and we'll try to choose the one that fits best. And then at that point, I will essentially build a prototype for the council to review. And we'll, I'm sure, critique it, make changes to it, test it a bit. And once we have a prototype that the key decision makers seem happy with and the group feels is workable, it'll be a pretty trivial effort to integrate that to the new site and set it live.
Awesome. Wow, thank you for that comprehensive update, Matt. I'm grateful for your skill sets that you're bringing. And yeah, what a great opportunity to hear from this council around needs. And as you were speaking, I was almost even thinking, like, because there are so many different needs, like this is just one avenue, you know, and it will be interesting to see what comes out of it in terms of the feedback around what is like highest priority and what is kind of like, that, well, it would be nice to have this. So yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for that update. I'm also realizing, noticing the time, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of a pin in this conversation. If you have questions, reach out either to the Order of the Sacred Earth, and I can forward those emails, or if you wanted to contact the working group directly. How are people getting a hold of the working group? Are they reaching out to you directly, Jesse or Anita?
Yeah, you can. I've been, I think, kind of like fielding a lot of the emails, so go ahead and you can send them my way.
Okay, great. So
and maybe what we'll do is set up a Google Doc for that list, but go, okay.
That's perfect. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and one way or another, we'll get you over to Jesse and the working group. Great. So moving into the this sort of middle part, we're going to hear from our guest speaker, Kristal. Oh, and I think you might have turned your video off. Are you sorry? Kristal, thank you so much for joining us. You're a longtime Order of the Sacred Earth yeah, community member, author, contributor. So thank you again so much for being here. And we've got you for the next 15 minutes or so. So feel free to, I know, a whole 15 minutes. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. So thank you, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. There we go. Thank you for the opportunity to share some ideas. My topic is working in harmony with nature. So I want to share some things about that. Do y'all know who Thomas Berry is? Raise your hand if you know who Thomas Berry is, the author of Dream of the Earth. Well, he one time said, what we should do is take all the sacred texts, that's the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, the sutras, and put them on the shelf and leave them there for 20 years. And instead learn from the scriptures written in nature. So that's precisely what I did. I moved into a one-room cabin high in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado and lived there as a hermit for 2 years. I only had to work in town for 1 day a week in order to support myself. So I spent my days very much involved with just sitting by the river and watching and learning from the river, from the tree that I was leaning against, from the eagles, the beavers, the porcupines, the elk, the deer, and everything that came by. And after 2 years of this much of intense, intimate embrace with Mother Nature, I discovered that at the core of everything that exists, every human being, every marmot, every piece of grass, every ego, there's a vibration not unlike a giggle. It's called joy. And it exists at the core of everything that exists. And I want to suggest that if we want to work in harmony with nature and in collaboration with nature, then we also need to work from that place of joy, because that's where animals live from. Animals live from that place of joy. So the other thing I want to talk about is animals and plants don't live in that place of joy all the time, because sometimes they get pulled out of that place of joy. For example, when a fox is anally electrocuted, that will pull him or her out of the space of joy very, very quick. And I'm very much in favor of working in collaboration with the non-human nations. That's the animals, the four-legged, the finned, the feathered, the creepy crawlers, and the rooted ones. And I want to share with you that I think it takes a special connection with nature to really work in harmony. And it just so happens that I was going to talk a little bit about this indigenous leader called Mariko Yellowbird. Does anybody know about him? I bring him up because he tells a story about the rain. And Matthew Fox had invited us to consider RAIN, as he said. So Mariko Yellowbird has his PhD in the brain, and he teaches at a school in Canada. And his main forte is the main class he teaches is decolonizing the brain. And this is a story that I heard him tell. So one day he was doing, what do you call that? The Sundance. He was doing the Sundance. And, you know, when they do the Sundance, they're out in the hot sun. They don't eat or drink for multiple days. And on this one particular day, it started pouring down rain. And so the man who was kind of ahead of the Sundance invited everybody to go underneath the tent and wait for the rain to stop. So Dr. Michael looked out of the tent and he saw his grandfather standing out in the rain, not coming under cover. And he noticed that he lifted up his sacred pipe to the clouds. And lo and behold, the clouds spread apart, the sun came through and the rain stopped. So Dr. Michael, being trained in Western mentality and worldview, concluded, oh, that's a coincidence. So they went out into the field again and were dancing again. And once again, it started pouring down rain. I mean, not a little rain, a lot of rain. It was a thunderstorm. And so again, they ran underneath the tent. And again, his grandfather lifted the sacred pipe to the clouds. And yes, again, the clouds separated and the sun shined through and the rain stopped. Well, now Dr. Michael was a little bit hard pressed to say that was coincidence, but he still said it was coincidence. So they went out and they were dancing again, having a very, very sacred ceremony. And once again, the third time, it started thunderstorming and raining. And again, they ran under the tent. And again, his grandfather raised up the sacred pipe. And again, the clouds spread apart, the sun came down, and the rain ceased. And now Dr. Michael realized this is a connection. This is a connection that my grandfather has with the elements, not only with the animals and plants, but with the elements. And I'm suggesting that, for me anyway, from my view, the planet cannot be saved apart from collaboration with and under the leadership of indigenous people. And one of the things he told us is that the brain is different for those who are connected to Mother Earth. The brain is different. And, you know, when I lived for 2 years in embrace with Mother Nature, I could feel something shifting inside of me. I don't, you know, it was more at a psychic level than a cognitive one, but I could feel that difference. And that's why I say that we really, really need the wisdom of the indigenous elders, because the earth runs through their veins. And when they talk about animals and plants as relatives, they really mean that. They really mean that and understand that in a very intimate and strong way. And then the second thing that I've mentioned is working in collaboration with animals and plants. So I have a story to tell you about elephants. You all know I'm an elephant conservationist. So, and I worked in Kenya for 10 years, but I also worked in South Africa. So one time I was doing work in South Africa with the conservationists, and we would drive, you know, out in the forest looking for and tracking elephants and other animals as well. And they told me this story, that they were out in a Jeep one day, driving around tracking different animals, and they saw this bull elephant, a small bull elephant, a young guy, who they named Charles. And Charles was trying so hard to push down a tree. And he couldn't push it, and he got very frustrated and almost like was stomping his feet because he couldn't push down this tree. So the Afrikaner conservationists stopped their Jeep and were just watching Charles and laughing at him. So Charles noticed they were laughing at him, and he looked up and he walked over to a smaller tree right next to the Jeep and pushed and pushed and pushed it right over onto the Jeep. And then with a toss of his trunk and a wiggle of his butt, he walked on with an ever so slight smile. So that's a story of the joy and sense of humor of elephants. So the story that I really was trying to get at today is that at the core of everything is this joy. And if we wish to save the planet, it's best to work from that place. So thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you so much, Kristal. What a beautiful story to leave us with. I love the wiggle of the butt and the little smile and just the so thank you. And for reminding us to go back into that place of joy, because so much of this work can be grief work, and just coming back to that space of brightness and aliveness. I think that's so important. And I think that's actually kind of a good segue into our next piece, which is to hear from the council. So thank you again, Kristal, for your time and your energy and all of your work for the animals and the plants, the rooted ones. Thank you so much for being with us. And I would love to open the space. We've got about 10 minutes or so for sharing from the council. So anything that's alive for you regarding, it could be anything. This is a time to ask each other or just to share in sacred space as you feel called. And then we'll save the last 5 minutes for a closing prayer. So thoughts, reactions, whatever's alive.
I'm going to kind of get out on a limb a little bit here.
Okay, great.
So I'm living in the encroaching forest inside a town limits, and there have been tensions with the town during this. So my ability to continue doing this is somewhat in question. And the original intention was to have this place shared. And particularly with COVID, it's sort of like the last feeling of ending a chapter, but not having, one of the things that I particularly value, there's a tiny woods next door, not a really natural woods, but an undeveloped lot with lots of trees. And one day I sit here and I'm looking out at it, and all of a sudden the filter disappears. And the trees are just laughing, and I'm laughing with the trees, so it is very, very heavy if I begin to talk to other human beings who don't quite have this experience or relationship. And they just said, oh, you just sell it and you move on. And I'm going, that just doesn't feel right. So if anybody, I want to put it out there, if anybody who is here now or watches this later and would like to have a conversation about this land and this woods and this place and this very big old house, I would love to invite that. And if you don't get my name right now, or I'll put my email in the chat as soon as I shut up, or you could get me through Mariko.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I love that you started that with, I'm going to go out on a limb.
It's like the squirrels that are just flying around here.
Yeah, yeah. That's really wonderful. And I really hear you, and thank you for sharing this space. So I feel like so many of us are in this like difficult or almost like paradoxical, or like I don't even know what to describe it, but it's a very strange place to be in time and relationship to the earth, and the way that we treat the earth or see it as a commodity, or move away and just don't forget about it and move on with your life. So yeah. And yeah, I wonder what that looks like. Yeah, I even now I'm struggling with words, but maybe it's not to necessarily find an answer for it, but to be able to talk about it in community and feel less alone and feel like you're getting closer, like shift the energy rather than obviously it would be nice to have a solution, but yeah, thank you. I think I'll be thinking about that one for a while. Yeah, Kristal, go ahead.
I want to really thank Penny for bringing that up, because I don't mean Penny, I mean Anita, excuse me, bringing that up because I rent in a townhome, and outside my townhome is this beautiful, 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 beautiful tree, and I love this tree so much. And then they came and the so-called the tree trimmers, and just cut so much of it off. And I asked them, why are you cutting so much off? Does it need to have that much cut off? And they said, well, we cut a third off. And it was like, well, maybe it didn't need a third being cut. And there's no there's no way to communicate. We should ask the tree. We should really ask the tree, do you want to lose this limb and that limb? Do you need to lose all this? And now it's just all straggly. And my heart is really broken, and I wonder, what could I do? Because I rent, I can't really go to the AOA. I'm not or whatever that HOA. I'm not a member of that as a renter. And what would anybody else have done? I'm thinking next time I'm going to tie myself to the tree or something. But I thought about that, and they can still, put up their ladders away from the base of the tree, where, even if I'm there holding onto the tree. But I don't know, it really breaks my heart. And I don't know what I could have done, but a third of it was cut off, and it feels really sad to me. It feels sad to me, because before it was just large and beautiful, and any ideas?
Kristal, I don't know what to do about it, but I just want to relay I had a similar experience. At the beginning of the lockdowns, I made friends with a tree in my neighborhood. And for me, that was kind of a first time experience to do that. And I go regularly to be with a tree. And similar experience when spring came around, the landscapers came around and just hacked off branches off this tree. And not only did they hack the branches off, but they scraped its bark. They weren't even careful about it. And I was really heartbroken. I couldn't explain it. Like that was a new experience for me to relate to this tree, to see how it was just mutilated. And the tree is amazing because it came back. It started growing again. It's just like recovering, but still it broke my heart.
Mm.
And maybe that's part of it, Kristal, is like what you were saying about making that connection, helping other people to make that connection. That this is a living thing. It's like our family.
Yeah. See here, something just went into the chat here. It looks like Matt says, I wish those who did tree work had to read Orson Scott Card, specifically the Ender series, about the fatherless trees and their language and how they willingly give when they sense the need of them for their material. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, that reciprocity and that knowing. Thank you, Matt, for sharing that. Yeah, I read Braiding Sweetgrass, and they talk about the reciprocity that happens. It's like, don't take the first, don't take the last, don't take more than you need. And then the land will give. And I think there's some really, like, again, what you were saying, Kristal, about the indigenous wisdom, like if we didn't learn that, if that doesn't get passed, then how do we learn? How do we know? And oh, I see Deb has their hand up. Deb, would you like to share?
Sure. I just have found the discussion really interesting and common with a lot of what we're all feeling right now. So I have two things I just would like to share. One is I'm just coming off of a very powerful grief ritual. And I really hear the point that you made, Mariko, about balancing the resilience, not to get lost in the grief, that there are so few places right now that we can really take what I'm hearing is this deep sorrow. So that's one thing. And the other thing is just for conversation, who knows? But what's been useful for me right now is just this whole metaphor of the butterfly in the transformation. It feels to me like right now that things are coming just faster and faster and faster to the point where we can't keep up with them. And I'm reminded that the caterpillar sees the imaginal cells of the butterfly as an enemy, and it destroys the first ones. And they keep coming and they keep coming until eventually the immune system of the caterpillar is overwhelmed. And then something really magical happens. So that for me is kind of what faith looks like. And it's really not easy. So I just want to affirm, you know, all the experiences that you all have brought forward. It's moving, and I really resonate with them all. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Deb, for joining and sharing. And if you haven't checked out the Cosmic Mass, there's a section for grieving, and it kind of culminates in a static dance of sorts. And that is a really great way to bring in the joy. Dance and movement and just moving it through your body. So highly recommend that. I don't know if there are any dancers out there. And even if you don't identify as a dancer, you can move, you can dance, and it's really wonderful. So anyhow, thank you all so much. I'm noticing the time. So I think at this point, I'd love to open the space up for our final prayer. But thank you again so much, everyone, for your thoughts, for your presence, for your energy, and showing up exactly as you are. This is medicine, and we're doing it. We're doing the work. So thank you. And without any further ado, I will now hand it over to Jesse to close us out with our prayer.
Thank you, Mariko. And thank you to all of you for coming together. First, I want to invite all of you. This is an invitation that before you close your eyes tonight and you drift off to sleep, think about something in the world that you want to transform. It might be cleaner oceans or a neighborhood where you want them to have clean air. There might be a four-legger or a winged one that you want to see flourish. It might be for fresh water. Just bring that into your consciousness. And as you bring that into your consciousness, know it. Know it as clean water or fresh air or that being flourishing. Just know it like you know it. Feel the joy, as Kristal mentioned, of being in the experience with it. It's not to overlook the problems that there may be, but it's to look past that, to look through it into the divine essence that is truly there, that is our planet, that she will restore herself, that she's always changing, she's always growing and changing and flourishing. So just for a moment, I invite you to just take that moment and imagine it, to be in that place with that thing that you so much desire to see improve, as in an improved state. You don't have to hang on to the thought for a long time. It could just be a moment. It could be the flicker of a candle. That's it. But just be with it for one moment. And then just say, thank you. Thank you. I know this is done. Thank you. And together, we transform this world. Together, with our open hearts and open minds, our spirits come together collectively to take action, to make this world better, to make the changes, to care for one another. And I want to thank Mariko for all the work she does to facilitate these meetings, and to thank Skylar and our beloved Matthew for their vision. And thank Kristal today for her amazing stories. What a gifted stories, wonderful stories she tells about the truth of our world, what is real. And thank you, Phila, for opening us with that deep prayer. What a gift all of you are, each and every one. As you go out into the world, know that you are an agent of transformation, and that the light that you carry within you illuminates the darkness and is luminescent in the shadows. Blessings to all of you. Be well. And until we meet again, thank you.
Thank you, Jesse, Aho, Awen. It was beautiful. And thank you all so much for being with us this evening. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out to Order of the Sacred Earth on email or social media. And then this recording will go up as soon as we're able to put it online. But thank you, Jesse, for that beautiful closing. And
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
happy birthday, Phila.
Happy birthday, Phila.
Thank you for choosing to spend your birthday with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Great. All right, everyone. Well, we'll see you back here next month. Till then, be well. And if you would like to be in touch with the working group, get a hold of us. We'd be happy to connect to you so that you can continue the conversation and not have to wait a whole month. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
I
Okay.